Call the meeting to order. Will you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This morning, we're going to start out with a financial report from Baker Tilly. Paige, you there? She on the line? She was. Good morning, Paige. Well, we can see you. Can't hear you yet.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you. Good morning.
Great, good morning. I would like to share my screen. How do I do that?
We can see you. Oh, your screen, I got you. Oh, trying to figure that out, Paige.
Okay. I don't see a control on my end to be able to do that.
Click on that.
We can see your screen page.
Okay. Is it the financial plan though?
No, it looks like it's somebody's background. Hold on,
Okay.
let me try this one.
Now can you see?
No, it's not showing. They do have copies.
Okay. Well, I can just proceed then. Hang on just a second. Okay, so I'm just going to hit the high level summary of this report since it is several pages long. What I would like to do is start at page number 4, which there's a graph at the top of page number 4. So what this is showing you, if you remember when I presented this last year, it's showing how you are impacted by circuit breaker tax credits. Fortunately, your county is not impacted very heavily by circuit breaker tax credits. In fact, your credits are very low as compared to a lot of other counties in the state. So in 2023, you are levying $7.8 million of property tax. However, 1% of that is returned to taxpayers in the form of credits. So basically, you levy $7.8 million, but you only collect about $7.7 million. So you're returning about $77,000 back to the taxpayers in the form of circuit breaker credits. Again, that's really pretty low. You know, we're seeing some counties suffering circuit breaker losses that could be over 15%. So you've got just less than 1% that you return to taxpayers. So that's really pretty good. One thing that helps you, well, there's two things. Your tax rates are relatively low in the county, but also the county had at one point passed a local income tax property tax relief rate. And that is a credit to tax bills. So that is applied to the tax bills before circuit breaker is applied. So that's helping to keep those circuit breaker credits down. So that's good. I'm going to move on to page number 5, where there is another graph on that page. And that just shows the total circuit breakers in the entire county. So about $420,000 of credits are issued to taxpayers within the county. And again, that's pretty low compared to other counties. Your portion, the county's portion, is 18.4% of those credits. The schools have the most circuit breaker loss. They're contributing to 47% of those circuit breaker credits. And again, that just goes to the tax rates. The tax rates for the schools are higher than the counties and the cities and towns. So therefore, they're generating more circuit breaker credits. Moving on to page number 6, there's a chart there that's comparing your net assessed values, which would be the bars, to your property tax rates, which is the line graph there. So the good news is that your tax rates have actually decreased since 2018. In 2018, your tax rate was 0.4377. In 2023, it is 0.3677. So that's a decrease of 16%. And that's largely due to your increasing net assessed value. So your net assessed value in 2018 was 1.5 million. It's grown to 1.5 billion. It has grown to 2.1 billion over that time frame. So that is a 42% increase. And that's also helping to keep your circuit breaker credits down. So that's all very good. Moving on to page number 7. So, this is where we start talking about areas of concern, but I'm going to tell you that it's not really that big of a concern just based on what I know about your county. But what we did is we looked at your major operating funds, which would be general, Lowett Public Safety, Reassessment, Health, and Motor Vehicle Highway. We combined all those funds together just to see kind of what the financial position was of those funds. So what you're seeing is a chart on page 7, and it shows a guardrail. The red dotted line is a 15% cash reserve, and the dotted green line is a 50% cash reserve. We would always want you to be somewhere in between there. We would not want you to fall below. We would not want you to have ending cash balances that fall below 15% of your disbursements. You can see that you've really been hugging that 50% line, which is great. I mean, you can't ask for better than that to have a 6 months cash reserve in your main operating funds. We do note a downward trend, but I want to say that what we're using in this report is your budgeted expenditures for 2023. We have seen historically that you typically don't spend your entire budget. In fact, especially in the general fund, you spend about 90 to 95% of your budget. So you don't spend your entire budget. So just note that this downward trend is really based on your budgeted expenses. You probably, likely, at least based on historical experience, will not spend everything that you budget. So these reserves look really good. Again, we don't want to see a downward trend, but actual data doesn't prove that to be, because I think we also showed a downward trend for the end of 2022, and you actually stayed right at 50% cash reserve. So I just want to note that. Moving on to page number 8, we always look to see which budgets don't appear to be balanced with the receipts. So in 2023, you do have 3 out of 5 funds that are not balanced to receipts. However, again, I got to put on a disclaimer here, because in reassessment and health, we had recommended that you spend down your reserves in those 2 funds because they are very, very high. They were over 100%. They're starting to come down. But typically when reserves are over 50%, you want to start thinking about what you're going to do with those reserves, whether it be one-time capital purchases or shifting some property tax levy from those funds to the general fund. And that's actually what you did. So in reassessment and health, yes, we see the reserves coming down, and that's totally fine. You're going to see that there's plenty of reserves in those funds. And when we get to those cash flows, I can explain further. General fund actually is better than balanced. And one of the reasons why is because you received a supplemental local income tax distribution, and I'll show you that when we get to that schedule. Had you not received that, it would have been out of balance by about 300 and some thousand. When I say unbalanced, what I mean is that you were estimating expenditures that exceeded your receipts for the same time frame. And then your motor vehicle highway is also better than balanced. So this is really very good. Not really any concerns here. The lit public safety, when I get to that fund, it looks like that may be a little bit out of balance, but it kind of depends on what the estimates are coming out for 2024. We've flatlined your local income tax for 2024 right now, but in July, this month, we should be getting a good estimate for 2024, and we can plug those in, and then that's going to help you determine what you can budget for 2024. Under considerations, we have some things in here that were the same from last year. One is, just so you know, you can reestablish your CUME Capital Development Fund. It's just something that you have in your back pocket in case you want to do that at some point. The statute has changed so that if you reestablish your CCD fund to the maximum, you will never have to reestablish it again. At one point in time, you had established it at the max, but there was something in the statute that trended the rate down as assessed values increased. That has been eliminated from the statute. So if you ever do decide to go to the max, you're at 0.0150 now. You can go to 0.0333, and that could generate about $430,000 of additional revenue for you. If you reestablish to the max, then that would be it. You would never have to do that again. And remember that CCD can be used for a wide range of capital projects and improvements, including bridges and roads. And I know those are two big things right now that counties are struggling to fund. Item number 2 is we're just saying, try to balance your budget with your receipts that you bring in a given year. We say that all the time, and that really is just to maintain your good, strong financial position. Item number 3 is just thinking about the Inflation Reduction Act, and I'm sure you're probably aware of this, but this is the first time that organizations can obtain a tax credit through funding of direct payments for qualifying clean energy or efficiency projects. So if you have any sort of clean energy or efficiency projects that are in the pipeline, we may be able to assist you to get some credits. And they could be up to 50% of the qualifying project cost. So I know a lot of counties and municipalities are looking to put in charging stations for electric vehicles. That would be a qualifying project, so just keep that in mind. And then item number 4 is, we did notice that you have, at the end of 2022, you had about 6.3 million of ARPA monies left in your account. Just remember that you need to commit that money by the end of 2024 and spend it by no later than December 31st of 2026. Moving on to page number 9, there's been so much growth in net assessed value, units are looking at whether they qualify for an excess levy appeal. And really what that is a request to the Department of Local Government Finance to permanently increase your maximum levy. So there's an appeal called the 3-year growth appeal that a lot of taxing units will be qualified to file this year. You might be qualified as well. We're waiting for a number from the state to determine that. But what it's based upon is your average 3-year growth of net assessed value. If that average is greater than 2% of the statewide average, then you could qualify. We don't know yet what the statewide average is. We get that information from the DLGF. But last year it was about 4%. So if it's somewhere around 4%, you would definitely qualify for this appeal, and you could generate an additional $300,000 to $400,000 possibly. So during budget time, we can check for eligibility to see if you would like to file that appeal. it would be a permanent increase to your maximum levy. So if you're experiencing growth, this is a good way to get additional property tax dollars to cover the cost of the growth in your area. And then the final item, number 6, is you do have those first mortgage refunding bonds, Series 2012, that mature in 2024. So to not let that debt service rate expire, we are recommending that you, or we suggest that you consider issuing new bonds to roll into that so that your debt service tax rate remains constant. And this is what many counties will do. As their bonds mature, they reissue so that debt service tax rate doesn't fall off. And I think Matt Eckerly's been talking to the county about that. So it'd be a good idea to start thinking about that this year and try to issue those new bonds before the end of the year. So now I'm going to go directly to the cash flows, which start on page 13. That's your general fund. So we've highlighted the lines that we feel are most important. So I'm not going to go through the detail, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have as we go through this. So there's an index numbering on the left-hand side of the page. So on line 19 is your operating receipts. So we do have 3 years of historical, so you can see what you've generated in receipts over the last 3 years. So you can see in 2020, it was about almost 11 million. 2021, 11.5 million. 2022, 12.7 million. In 2023, 13.6 million. So those have been your receipts for those 3 years. And then the estimated receipts for 2024 is very important because that's where we talk about balanced budgets. And if you want a balanced budget, we right now are saying that your budget should be about 13.1 million in your general fund. Now, I did tell you that the local income tax, we flatlined. So that's on line 15. In 2023, you're getting almost 5 million in local income tax. So we flatline that going forward, but I would imagine you're going to have some growth. Again, we should be getting those numbers really soon from DLGF, and we can plug that in as soon as we get it. And so that may increase your overall revenue number for the general fund. On line 16, you can see where you got that local income tax, the supplemental local income tax. So for 2023, it's 688,000. That's a lot of supplemental local income tax. The problem is we can't assume that you will get that every year. That is, the state keeps a 15% reserve of local income tax, and then when it gets above that, they're required to distribute that out to the units. So that's what's happened since 2021. But again, we can't assume that that will happen every year. So we don't estimate anything going forward. But if you get it, then that just adds to your cash reserves. On line 21 is your operating disbursements. So you can see kind of what you've spent over the last 3 years. It's been about 12 million to 12.6, 12.7 million. And you can see that in 2022, if I look down on line 36, you actually added to your cash reserves. So if that on line 36, if that dollar amount is positive, it means you're adding to your cash reserve. If it's negative, you're reducing your cash reserve. So in 2022, you spent under your receipts, which is great. You added to your cash reserve. On line 39, you had 3.8 million left at the end of the year, which is a 30.4% cash reserve. That's really very good. 20 to 25% cash reserve is pretty strong, but 30 is even stronger. So again, we don't want you to fall below 15%, but you're right in between the 15% and the 50%. So that's very good. 2023, as I stated before, you have a better than balanced budget. If you look on line 36, you're adding about 380,000 to your cash reserves if you spend your entire budget. And I don't think that you will, because you haven't historically. But again, a lot of that has to do with that supplemental lit of 688,000 that you received in May. And then going forward, we simply applied a 3% growth on your budget. I don't know what your budget is yet, but what I would really focus on is that line 19. That's your receipts. And look at 2024. So right now, today, I'm thinking, if you have a budget of about 13.1 million in your general fund, that's a good budget. It's a balanced budget. It may come up a little bit once we get the local income tax, but this is a pretty good estimate right now. So unless anybody has any questions about the general fund, I'm going to go a little bit quicker through these other funds. I know we've got a lot to cover, but I just want to hit on the high points. So with every one of these funds, we do have this graph that shows the guardrail. You can see that general is right in between those two lines. So that's very good. Here's your local income tax public safety fund. So on line 2 is your public safety distribution. For this year, 2023, it's 1.7 million. You did get a supplemental distribution of about 240,000. But again, we didn't project that going forward. So if we look at 2024, what are we estimating today? About 1.7 million. We just flatlined that distribution. Hopefully it'll be more. And at least for this report, we just are assuming that you're going to spend what you bring in, 1.7 million. I know your budget for 2023 is 2 million. So you may want to adjust that depending on how much lit you end up receiving. Your cash reserves look pretty good. They've been, near 50% for 2020 and 2021, went down to 38% in 2022, but still very good, very strong cash reserves. And you can see where you fall in this chart on page 16. So now I'm moving to page 17. And you can see in 2024, we're estimating receipts of 115,000. Your budget has been running about over 300,000, but you don't typically spend all of that. You've only been spending about a little over 200,000. So cash reserves are very high in this fund. At the end of 2022, you ended with 1.3 million, which is a 559% cash reserve. Reserves really for this fund don't need to be any higher than maybe 25%. So you are projected to spend down the reserves, which is what we would recommend. Basically what you're doing is you're shifting property tax over to the general fund for now. Probably in 2027, you might have to shift some property tax back over to this fund, depending on how low the reserves are getting. But even by the end of 2026, they're going to go down to like 54%. So it's still pretty strong cash reserves. You're just basically utilizing some of those funds that have built up over a number of years. So I'm going to move on to page number 19. This is your health fund. Kind of the same situation here. You've got some pretty excessive cash reserves. At the end of 2022, it was over 121%. So again, you're shifting property tax from this fund over to the general fund to try to utilize some of those cash reserves. By the end of 2026, you drop down to about 20%. So probably in 2027, might have to shift a little bit of property tax back over to this fund. For 2024, if you look at line 10, your budget should be around 670,000 in this fund, unless, again, you want to continue to spend down cash reserves, which is what we would recommend. So in that case, it could be around 720,000. Moving on to page number 21. This is your motor vehicle highway fund. And remember that 50% of the state gas tax distribution has to be deposited in a restricted fund, and then the remainder goes to this regular MVH fund. This is your county highway fund. In 2024, on line 6, we're estimating receipts of about 1.7 million. Your budget has not been really anywhere near your receipts the past 3 years. You've underspent your receipts by, if you look at line 23, 434,000 in 2020, 392,000 in 2021, and 245,000 in 2022. So your cash reserves have actually been increasing in this fund. So that tells me that you have room to spend some money out of this fund, whether it be, adding to paving or whatever you have in mind. But again, if we're just looking at what is a balanced budget for 2024, we would say 1.7 million. Your cash reserves are pretty strong in this fund. Now I'm going to move on to page 23, which is your CEDAT fund. So this is the LIT Economic Development. You also received a supplemental distribution in this fund. So if you look on line 3, you received 175,000. Your normal distribution is 1.2 million. We're flatlining that. Of course, we can update it as we get additional numbers. So for a balanced budget, you're looking at about 1.2 million, but you do have some reserves that you can use for one-time capital projects and improvements. You ended 2022 with a cash balance of 2.5 million, which is almost a 250% cash reserve. So again, you've got some monies there. If you've got some one-time capital projects and improvements, you've got some monies there to use. Strong cash reserves in this fund as well. So I will move on to page 25, which is your cumulative bridge fund. And I work with a lot of counties, and I think this is the kind of the number one thing is we just don't have enough money to to maintain or repair or replace bridges. And I understand that, you're not at the maximum rate on this cum bridge fund. However, if you were to increase the rate on this, you would have to reduce the rate on another controlled fund like general health reassessment. And many counties cannot afford to do that. So you kind of have to operate within your means here. I know that some counties now are issuing bonds to repair bridges or replace bridges. So that is an option that you have, especially since you have a bond that is rolling off. You could actually issue bonds for bridges if that's what you need the monies for. So basically what you bring in is about 1.3 million. So if you look on line 11 in 2024, we're estimating your receipts to be about 1.4 million for 2024. So that would be the balanced budget for the normal operating costs. Capital is a big driver for this fund. And, we built in 1.5 million for 2024 just because that's what you have in your 2023 budget. And we flatline that going forward, and you can see your cash reserves will start declining if that's what you do. I'm sure you probably have a plan for your bridges, but just know that, you're going to only be bringing in about 1.4 million a year. Your cash reserves are pretty strong in this fund as well. Going on to page 27, this is your cumulative capital development fund. And this is the fund that I mentioned that you could increase the rate if you wanted to. Your rate right now is 0.0150. You could go to 0.0333. And by doing so, you could generate an additional property tax revenue of about 430,000. So in 2024, on line 10, we're estimating receipts of about 383,000 currently. So if you wanted a balanced budget, you would just need to keep it within that range. You have been adding to your cash reserves for the past 3 years, so you haven't been spending the entire budget in this fund. At the end of 2022, you ended the year with 888,000. which is a 461% cash reserve. So you've got some room in here if you have some one-time capital projects or improvements or even equipment purchases, vehicles, could be funded out of this fund and you still have a pretty strong cash reserve. So moving on now to page 29 is your local road and street fund. This fund is also funded with, or the receipts are gas tax. So you get about $600-some thousand in this fund. For 2024, we're estimating $669,000. This is more sometimes a project and supply driven fund. You cannot pay for personal services out of this fund. So when we're looking at cash reserves, you could really get by with a 20% cash reserve in this fund. Your cash reserves have been well over that. So again, it's just driven by what you need, like in supplies and materials and things of that nature. So again, healthy fund. I don't see any issues there. MVH restricted, this is where that 50% restricted gas tax is going. We're just going to assume that you spend what you bring in. This particular fund really doesn't need any sort of cash reserves because it's all project driven. So you can see the reserves are somewhat low in this fund, but they don't need to really, you don't really need to have any reserves in this fund. In fact, you've tried to spend down everything that you put into this fund, which is excellent because that's what it's there for, basically. So no worries with this fund as well. Page 33 is your lit correctional rehab facility. So this is your jail lit, basically, or your correctional facility lit. You've got a supplemental distribution for this fund as well. If you look on line 3, you got about $282,000 of supplemental local income tax. Your normal distribution is about $2 million. So we are estimating that for 2024. You can use this fund for jail operating costs, and we did build some in for 2024, but your debt payment ramps up in 2025, starting in 2025. So we want to make sure that you can cover that debt payment. Your debt payment is going to be close to $2 million, and that's what you bring in. If you bring in some more, there may be some room to cover some jail operating costs. You've got plenty of coverage for your debt. We're estimating about 200% coverage. I don't even think it needs to be that high, but it's good that you have coverage because we do want to make sure that you can cover those debt payments. Moving on to page 35, it's just your drain maintenance fund. There's only so much you can use this fund for, but you have plenty of money in that fund to cover, what you need to get done. So that's completely fine. Page 37 is your redevelopment commission fund, and that's where your TIF revenues are receipted into. And you probably already are aware of this, but there was some new legislation that just passed at the beginning of the year that allows you to use TIF revenue for public safety operating and capital expenses. And that's only if it's built into the plan for the redevelopment commission. So there's quite a bit of monies available in this fund. You do have a debt payment that you cover out of this fund, but you have plenty to cover that debt payment. You're bringing in about $4 million from the TIF area. So you have enough to cover your about $750,000 debt payment, and then there's monies left over. So this can definitely be utilized for infrastructure and things that benefit the TIF area, as well as those public safety operating costs and capital costs. Moving on to page 39, which is that government center lease. This is the bond issue that is maturing in 2024. But we want to try to keep that rate constant. So that's why we're recommending that you issue debt in 2023 so that rate doesn't fall off in 2024 and beyond. So that's an opportunity for you. If you've got some really large projects that you need to do, a bond issue could cover those costs without an increase to the taxpayer because you already have a debt service rate. And if you let it fall off for a year, then taxpayers would see an increase the following year if you tried to issue additional debt. So it's good to keep that rate constant. Going on to the supplemental data, I'm not going to go through all of this, but starting on page 41, these are just some descriptions of your major funds in case you wanted to know what these funds could be used for. Hume Capital Development, there's all kinds of uses for that fund, but we've listed all of those out and it comes from the statute. So that's just for your information. That goes on through page 42. On page 43 is your local income taxes. So as you are probably aware, you can have local income tax of up to 2.5%. You're below that. Your total income tax rate right now is about 1.68%. And this diagram on page 43 is just showing you where you have your local income taxes or how you've adopted them. So you've got property tax relief lit, as I stated before, which is keeping your circuit breakers low. That's at 0.0329%. You have certified shares at 1%, public safety at 0.25%, economic development at 0.2%, and the correctional facility rehab at 0.2%. So you can just see what buckets you have of local income tax there. Page 44 is showing you a comparison of your budget, what you budget, and then what you actually spent. And as I mentioned before, you typically do not spend your entire budget. So if we just look at the general fund alone, in 2021, you spent 91% of your budget. And then in 2022, 95%. So, you know, that's really pretty good. We like to see you spend about 95 to 100% of your budget. If you're spending, let's say, 80% of your budget, then we say that your budget's probably inflated. So you're right about where you need to be with that. Just, you know, remember there's no reason to inflate your budget because your property tax levy is not based on what you're budgeting. As long as you request your full amount of property tax levy, you're going to get it, whether you are budgeting to utilize all of it or not. Moving on to page 45, this is just a recap of your fund balances for the funds that we analyzed in this report. Page 46 is just a handy kind of one-page summary of all of your outstanding debt right now. Including the debt that's getting ready to mature in February of 2024. That's at the top of the list. And then we end the report with just some comparative data for surrounding counties. So on page 47, you see the 2023 local income tax rates. So you're kind of on the lower end of these counties that we looked at. Allen County has 1.48%, you have 1.6829%, and then Noble's 1.75. So you can see kind of where you are, where you land with the surrounding counties. Page number 48 is property tax rates, and you can see where you fall with the surrounding counties on the property tax rates. Your tax rate right now is 0.3677, so you're pretty close to Noble and Wabash. In this chart. Page 49 is how much property tax you're levying per person. So per capita, you're levying about $230 per capita, and you can see where that falls. It's pretty close to several of these counties on this chart. And then the last slide 50, or I'm sorry, the last page 50 is your net assessed values per capita. So it's about $62,485 per capita. That, you know, you're pretty similar to the other counties. I mean, Allen County is an outlier. They have a lot of property value there. The net assessed value in their county is way higher than yours. So that's why there's kind of a difference there. So that's basically the end of the report. Does anybody have any questions? I know I went through there pretty fast, but we had a lot of pages to cover. So any questions?
I'm sure as you get the new figures for us and get this updated, we'll talk again and probably have some questions as we get further into our budget.
Sure, sounds good. Yeah, this should be a really good starting point for your budget discussions. And yes, we will provide the updated numbers once we get those.
Thank you, Paige.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Too. Thank everyone for your patience. It'd been a little nicer if you could have seen it on the screen also. Next time, maybe we can have that done. Okay, Dale, this time, turn the floor over to you.
Good morning, Dale Booth, Whitley County Economic Development. I brought this up briefly at the last council meeting, and so today we're ready for a formal resolution request, council. So just a little bit more context and background. A, what the project is, and B, why is redevelopment here? Because I am representing the Redevelopment Commission on this. And the developer is here today, so I appreciate them for joining us. Should you have any questions, the Rogers Realty. So if you guys could just kind of identify yourself there.
Jason, can you hear back there? Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Yeah. So we have, the Rogers Group has purchased some property just north of Pictus Crossing off of 100, and they are developing that. And it's desperately, I shouldn't say desperately, but it's very much needed because we have opportunities that come into economic development where folks are looking for property to either build a building on, or if there's an existing building. So they have purchased the property, they're starting to develop it, they're working with redevelopment, and they are also considering putting a spec building on it. The spec building will be 33,000 square feet and expandable. And this is a nice sweet spot because I'm seeing projects in that square footage range come up. Also, a lot of folks are more interested in a building that's either underway or existing. And so the incentive Redevelopment Commission is offering Rogers is to cover their carrying costs through a lease until the building is actually leased by a permanent tenant. This has been done before in Rail Connect and then also in Park 30. Normally, with some existing customers or prospects, we use training grants or other public improvement projects like fire suppression or helping them with a parking lot. But in this case, we're entering into a lease. And under Indiana code, that means even though redevelopment has the agreement, redevelopment is paying the lease, we have to come in front of council with a resolution, and the resolution today is 2023-12 for council just to understand that redevelopment is entering into a lease. This lease has, it's not open-ended. It has a termination of 24 months, and that is why we're here today. And if you'd like to hear from John Rogers, that's fine. If not, I would ask for a motion and a second on this.
I would like to say something, serving on the Redevelopment Commission, that this is a great opportunity for us. I want to thank the Rogers for stepping up and looking at this project, because it's, as you well know, a lot of our tip area out that way is about gone. I mean, as far as building sites, so this gives us another opportunity to expand and to grow it here in Willow County. So I just want to take this time to thank the Rogers for stepping up. Appreciate it.
Make a motion to approve resolution 2023-12 by title.
I'll second it.
I have a motion by Thor, a second by Kim, that we approve resolution number 2023-12. Any further discussion? I would just like to say that the Rogers name, for us older ones, they had a chain of grocery stores. And they, as as businesses do, they made some decisions, family decisions, and went a little different route with commercial buildings throughout northeastern Indiana. And when we sat down and talked to them the first time, it was a pleasure. We could tell there was business people, and we're fortunate to get this group interested in investing in Whitley County. So appreciate your efforts and so forth. So any other comments? I do have a motion and a second. I'll ask for the question. All those in favor of resolution number 2023-12, raise your right hand. All those opposed, the same. Show that it passes.
Thank you very much. And if I may just make one comment on what she was talking about, TIF funds can be used for public safety. I just want to let you know, we actually had that discussion at redevelopment, and we plan on taking advantage of that.
Thanks, Dale.
Thanks, Dale. Good luck. Okay, next. Julie. Morning.
I am here on behalf of the Whitney County Drug Free Indiana Fund. We had our 2023 Finance Committee recommendations that I think are in your packet. Just thought I'd give a real brief explanation about that fund. So there's a fee that's charged in the courts for alcohol and drug offenses that are a misdemeanor and above. It's called a $200 alcohol countermeasure fee or drug countermeasure fee. So that money is collected by community corrections, probation, the clerk. We all kind of, try to collect those fees either through the bond or through payment plans. And so all that money is collected for a year. And then we have our coalition meets once a month. We have some stipulations for that grant money. We attend at least 6 meetings out of the year. And then there are 3 categories. There's the prevention, the education, and the treatment category. So when we divide those funds, they have to be divided equally. And then also the state keeps a portion of that money, of course. And that's through the Indiana Criminal Justice Institute. So we have our finance committee made their recommendations for 2023. And I'm here just to ask for your approval. We had previously met with commissioners last month. They gave their approval to that. And so I'm here for this today.
Motion to approve. I'll second.
We have a motion by Thor, a second by Nick, that we approve this distribution. Any further comments, questions? I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, the same.
Thank you.
Thank you. Scott.
As indicated in the budget meeting, I'll be coming back to talk to you about recent legislation changes for the health department. This year, effective July 1st, they've changed the way people are appointed to the board to some extent. They've given the fiscal body of the county an appointment to the health. If you look at the Senate Bill 4 that I gave you a copy of, it says under B number 2, section 2, it says one person either has public health knowledge or is a member of the general public is appointed by the county fiscal body. And on the other page I sent you was a list of existing board members. If you read through the whole statute there, since we're under 200,000, still have a board of 7. The top of that statute, which I think you get a copy of it, does indicate that we still have to have no more than 4 people of the same political party. And so my hopes is, as I talk to you, the commissioners, and the mayor, which is the section below you, that we would be able to reappoint the existing members onto the board with their existing terms. That would help quite a bit. The conflict of having to reappoint every year and changes, it's just so much nicer to have them staggered like that. And then whoever you would appoint or reappoint they would serve out their term, and then I come back to you if they chose not to re-up on that, or if you decided to change that person. Now, I've talked with the mayor. He's said that he would get me his appointments for the commissioners at the end of the month. And so we're thinking maybe the August meeting, you guys can appoint somebody either from the list or somebody else that meets those qualifications. And then the commissioners would hopefully follow suit in listing their 6 other people. Any questions from me?
Yeah, how are you going to determine which one is our appointment since you're essentially asking us to keep who you have? So are you
You
gonna
would
tell
choose
us who?
somebody on that name. You choose them by name, and then you reappoint them. Your person, as under the statute, can have health knowledge or just a general member of the public. The only person that's a general member of the public on the board at this time is Grace Slaughter. She is not listed in any of the subsections above as a health designee.
So that's the only position that we could have.
Well,
then.
you could if you chose to reappoint somebody else in the board. Otherwise, you would choose somebody else.
So are we interviewing our person? Or
If you'd like them to come before you and talk to you, you can. Grace has been on the board probably at least 12 years. She also served on city council in Columbia City for a number of years. It's up to you guys, whatever you'd like. Just let me know what the legislation says and go from here. I hope that we'd have them appointed by October when our next meeting is scheduled, but
So you can't have more than 4 people from the same
political party.
So Carrie and Mark Burkett are not designated.
Well,
What are
Dr.
they?
Burkett's the health officer. He's not
Okay.
on the board. So you have,
He's voided.
yeah, well, Carrie is a registered Republican. She just, that name's not on there. So she's the 4th. Then you have your 3 Democrats there. Yep. Sorry about that. Any questions? The legislative body took away the ability for cities to have health departments. There's 2 city health departments in the state, Gary and Fishers. The state took away that ability for that to happen. So this was kind of their, okay, well, for the mayor to possibly put somebody in.
So I want to make sure that I understood exactly what you just said. The only person that we could choose to reappoint would be Grace Lauder, unless we pick one of the other positions and replace them with someone besides the person that's in that position.
You could choose anybody from the list that you want. They either have to have a public health knowledge or general public. I was just saying Grace is the only person that isn't a public health professional. And then the commissioners could appoint Grace instead of you guys. It's just whatever you choose to do. You could choose somebody of your own board if you felt like anybody on the board had health knowledge. You're not restricted. I'm just saying to help me make things smooth, that would be my choice, but that's up to you guys. I think everybody on the board is good standing. I don't have any issues with anybody there. Most people show up to the meeting, they have input into the county health department. You would like them to come here or have a resume or something like that? I could do that for all 7.
Up to,
This is not something we need to decide right
No.
this second,
Just
right?
let them-
Okay.
yeah.
Any questions you might have?
I think our role is going to come into play a lot more as someone cycles through. You need us to reappoint someone. I don't look at it as an issue right now because the people that you have are on your board. They're in good standing. They're working with you. And the reason that we're getting involved here is because the law changed. So it's my opinion that whoever, either the commissioners decide for us or the process by figuring out which position is ours, that it should pretty much be rubber stamped and we move forward. Rubber stamped by us with who's on there
Right,
now, not
right.
coming from the commission.
Yeah. Most of us know Grace and Bob, so. want it done at the next meeting, is that correct?
Well,
Or
if the
by-
commissioners are ready at that time, it'd be nice, yes, at least have your appointment and then we can move forward with theirs. The mayor should have his 3 appointments to them to choose from.
Okay,
Any questions for the health department in general while I'm here?
questions for the health department?
Thank you, Scott. Thanks, Scott.
Cindy?
Good morning. Okay, what I have for you today is in 2020, the state mandated us to change case management systems. So we went from JTS to Odyssey. Of course, I collect all the court costs and all the fees for the county. And what was brought to my attention was the court went to pay for I'm not quite sure what they use it for, but they went to pay something. They didn't have money in one of their funds. Well, what we found out was during the conversion that the fund number from the auditor's office, the old report had the right number, but in the new Odyssey, when it was converted, that they had had a different account number. So basically what we need to do is, this is their money and they need this money to be able to pay different things for the court. So Tiffany, I'm not quite sure how much the transfer is, but
It's 11,771.67.
so we're just trying to get it into the right fund number is what we're trying to do.
So we're just moving it from one fund to the other.
Correct.
They have fixed it on their
Yes.
report moving forward so that it goes
Yes.
into the right fund.
I'll motion to make the transfer.
I'll second it.
Motion by Nick, a second by Kim, that we approve the transfer of $11,771.67. So the courts can pay some bills. Any additional discussion? Call for the vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, say. Pass 5-0. Thank you.
Cindy.
Todd?
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Coming back in this month to discuss that additional appropriation that we asked for that travel mileage line item for our county extension. We have been, this year, 2023, we've been reduced down to just 3,000 in that travel mileage line item. And we're just asking for the additional appropriation of 5,000, which will get that line item back up to 8,000, which is where we had been.
General. Yeah. You had to come back because it had to be advertised properly.
Correct.
I believe you've answered a lot of questions. Your mileage is depleted now.
Correct.
And of course, this is extremely busy time. And so you're asking for additional 5,000 come out of county general.
I have one question, please. On this $5,000, if you don't use it all, does that roll over into travel and expenses?
At the
Or are
end of
you
the year,
allowed to
it
use it in
goes-
another area?
I believe per my knowledge, every one of our line items, whatever we don't use rolls back into
Okay.
county general at the end of the year.
And this is only for travel.
Correct.
Right, thanks.
Good question. Any other questions? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve transfer.
I'll second.
Motion by Thor, second by Joan, that we approve the transfer. Further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, say passes 5-0. Thank you. Porter's not here, right?
No.
Scott's not here, the coroner. We had a similar situation last month that it had to be re-advertised, and this is for that autopsy, DNA, and so forth. His request is for $6,385. The total cost of that is $8,885. We know that it's eventually going to total $10,385 with possibly burial and so forth. I think a couple of you have had some discussion on this.
Motion to approve. Second.
Got a motion by Thor, a second by Nick. Further discussion?
Well, I think, wasn't he gonna have to come back as far as getting like $2,500? He'd be a little short.
I think that
That was coming
DJ
from
is-
DJ.
was going to be funded from DJ, but I think you'll have to come back for, if nobody claims the body, for additional $1,500 in burial and so forth. And they do not think that, he does not think at this time that anybody's going to claim the body. So,
But that hasn't happened yet, so.
But, yeah,
that's all right.
that's fine. I thought something was said that they might have to have some more money. She will.
Yeah, looks like it. Okay, we have a motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, the same. Jen's not here, right? Oh, she's clearing the back, hiding.
Morning.
Morning.
Do you want to review just the requests that are being recommended, or do you want to review all of them?
Joan?
I would say the ones that are recommended.
Okay. The first one I have on our list is from the assessor. She's requesting, or she had requested an overlap because her chief deputy is leaving next year at the end of the school year. So the committee is recommending for a period of up to 6 months to hire somebody to have overlap and train. So that was your first recommendation. A salary was not discussed, but we did, or was not decided, I should say, but we did discuss a salary or for 2023 anyway of $46,583, which would increase depending on what you do for cost of living.
And this person's gonna take over for the lady that's leaving.
Correct.
Do you know when that is again?
She hasn't turned in her resignation yet, but she has an anticipated end date at the end of next school year, so June 2024. So I believe
So
that,
if we approve 6 months, it won't all be in this budget. It'll be in the
Correct.
following year's budget also.
correct.
And we did request a resignation.
She has not officially turned it in, but yes.
Or hiring or,
Correct. So you're hoping to have somebody, an offer extended at least by January then, right? Hopefully, as long as you can find someone.
only makes sense. At least school is gonna go.
So it really wouldn't be in. Okay. Make a motion that we approve the request and at the salary that was presented.
Have a motion by Thor, second by Joan, that we approve the request of assessor adding additional person to take the place of someone leaving. And
But we need to add on there that we do have to have that resignation letter attached.
is that part of the motion?
I would think it should be
Thor,
before we do the advertising.
I don't know if we have to have it, but if that person doesn't resign, then after 6 months, that other person's job doesn't exist anymore that you would replace them with. So that's the backside.
yeah, we've talked about that in our personnel, that Kim's got to understand that that person all of a sudden says, we're not going to move, then
Yeah, and that's, I don't think that that stipulation needs to be there because we're approving 6 months. And if that person doesn't leave and it goes past the 6 months, then whoever you would replace that person with would be out of a job. So I don't think it's necessary to have that stipulation.
Right.
something in writing would just make it a little firmer.
It could be anticipated. She could say, this is my anticipated end date or something like that. That way we would know approximately when to start the new person. But also discussed too, I'm gonna add that we discussed the salary would come out of reassessment fund, and Kim was gonna investigate whether benefits could also be paid out of that.
The training part of it.
So
For
nothing
6
will be
months.
coming out of county general. And we appreciate the fact that you can utilize that money for that, especially with the reserve that you have.
Anything else, Jen?
Well,
I
not
I know we got a
not
motion,
related
but
to
I,
this.
you was just kept adding some
Sorry.
facts, so,
Yeah.
so.
No.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second for the additional person to be trained for the position that is leaving. Any further discussion? Call for the vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, the same. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, the committee also is recommending one part-time security officer for the sheriff's department. And the intent there is to add additional security here in this building, I believe. And that would be for the 2024 budget as well.
Jason, you want to speak on the security here?
That's what was discussed.
Right.
Set hours or no set days, especially if you don't want.
Just to see how it works, especially during busy times here.
Depending on the hours we get, what the funding is, divide that out between people who work it. Opportunity for security to get out to the different buildings.
So you're not really asking for an additional hire as much as you are just additional funds to get more hours for them.
Well, we'll need more, plus we really thought we were gonna lose one for a while. So that's why we asked for that. Considering one, they considered the part-time, we're hiring one just temporarily, but after talking with Jen and things, obviously, so they considered a temporary position.
Well, with the amount of money and equipment and training, by the time you get somebody trained, we didn't want to invest over $2,000 in somebody for a couple months and they didn't even use the equipment or be available after the training period, because when through that. The whole effort behind this is talking with commissioners, just to try and establish security in this building with the people that we have, and then adding people so we don't short the courthouse side. So we wanted to put 2 additionally on part-time, where they could cover hours there and hours here. It doesn't matter if the new employee could work over there, any of it. It was just the fact of adding part-time personnel to that staff to be able to afford some security measures.
Jason, how many hours are you thinking? I mean, part-time person's only gonna work so many hours, right?
Yeah, and some of them work more than others, but some of them actually want to work more hours. Obviously, we can't go from 29 and a half, but I think most of the people over there running some of them around 20 to 25. Have to put a schedule together this side of the building and see how we feel with that.
This persons will have already have their training and everything, or
We ended up having, when Greg Grief left early this year, we had enough personnel that put in applications, and that's why I addressed the commissioners at that time to review to see if that's something they want to put. So it's been a few months, but we did have a couple of qualified applicants that could do the job, and that's where we thought, and it's not normal that we get those type of applications, so while we had it, I thought it would raise some commissioners to see if they wanted to pursue that. That's how it started.
Chad, you want to say anything on that?
I would just to echo it, Jason did have the conversation with us, and the commissioners do support this initiative. We would like to have some security presence in the building. The idea was that whoever's in the rotation could, if they have an extra person at the courthouse, then that extra person could come do some walkthroughs here, and like what was already said, it'd be great during the tax collection time.
Time frame by any chance? When you're,
No, I mean, it's new, so no.
okay, you'll just keep us informed. And so what are you asking for, Jen? Dollars or anything, or we don't know?
I'm not asking for anything. The committee recommended an additional part-time security officer.
So that's what we're okay with it, is what we're saying.
You have different pay scales, Jason, or is everybody pretty much the same rate?
Part-time's gonna be that same part-time rate there, and that's what I was gonna bring up. That's probably why she can't, because even in the budget for part-time, you can't put anything in there to actually figure out what's going on. Found out a lot of there on the part-time side. As far as approval, we can adjust on hours and go from this rate, so it'd be some type of ballpark.
Couldn't imagine a whole 29 and a half hours being spent here per week though, do you? Or is that bi-weekly?
Well, you could divide that into like 3 people working afternoons, mornings, work the whole day. So it'd be tax time if you're coming here, maybe there'd be 2 people here, maybe one upstairs, one downstairs during tax time on certain days. I just want to keep it fair.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Okay. Something looks like it'll be coming. Have to go through the budget time, right? So forth.
Well, for his budget, he left it as is because he wasn't sure if you guys were going to approve it or not. So I guess if this would let him know if he needs
We
to
didn't add
increase.
anything because,
Right.
yeah.
It's an additional position that he's requesting. So we're just asking
For the
Right.
position.
for the position,
Will the
an additional
security,
part-time position.
the security at any level for the employees to feel more comfortable here at this building is important. And we've gotten by this far without having that. And I know with a couple of different issues we've had over the last year, it's necessary. We need to take this seriously, and I would make a motion to approve the position. And we're not talking about, a full salary and benefits. We're talking about some part-time hours. I think it's going to be a very minimal ask as far as the total number of dollars spent over here for the security that it's going to provide. And if we do it randomly, even when someone's not here, there's always a chance that someone could be here, and bad guys don't know that. So make a motion that we approve the position.
Jason, could you use them somewhere else when they're not here?
They're gonna be trained just like anybody else in the courthouse. So it doesn't matter, the existing employees are gonna be able to work over here. This new person just isn't gonna be assigned to courthouse. They'll be part of security, make a schedule, and if somebody wants to pick up extra hours that maybe aren't fitting into, or not getting their 29.5, or want to change the pace to the courthouse side, they can come over here and work for two half days, or half a day, one full day. Those people, the courthouse security are the same people who are gonna work over here. We're just adding some more hours and another person to dispense more people.
Do you
So
think,
same training, same people.
do you think you could possibly use this as like a feeder for your department?
No.
No?
For personnel?
No? That's too bad. I would second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Thor, a second by Nick, that we add security, part-time security position. Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, the same. Passes 5-0.
Okay, lastly, the committee also agreed to increase the part-time lactation consultant in the health department from 12 to 20 hours per week to assist with health educator duties.
Want to talk on that, Scott?
So yes, and what we decided to do was utilize the existing grant that Daniel's getting paid out of right now, and part-time fund to supplement these extra hours. And the person who's with Razor's off, Razor inspector who's Mike, is going to be paid out of grant.
So you're not requesting any additional money. You're going to work within your grant and part-time fund.
Then the grant goes away, then what are you gonna do?
We'll have to come back and talk about that.
Good grant.
Mike is planning on retiring in 2 years. He's going, well, I'm gonna try to keep him out for maybe at that point, I'm going to do that. And then as we had talked about before, bringing on a full-time environmental person, this other duties in, who's receiving costs. But this year it's not gonna be enough, and so this will have to come back to the committee whenever we see an increase in activity in the county.
So do we need a motion on that, Jen, or?
I would say yes. If there's
Just for
not,
clarification, I would, yes.
Will you clarify that?
well, whenever an employee moves to 20 hours too, they're now eligible for PTO, they're eligible for benefits. I think it's a good idea to vote on it.
Well, and this move from 12 to 20 hours, the additional hours is warranted, correct? It's just not giving more hours.
Just like we had talked about, we're trying to do some intervention for legal issues that are facing benefits. So that's what we're trying to get involved. In fact, we already had discussions with DCS about some of their cases whenever they have expected mothers or existing mothers. Maybe also expecting at the same time bringing Danielle into those cases to involve and give them guidance on that we need to do with that. we already have a plan.
You talked about benefits.
Right. We have two categories of part-time people. So once a part-time person hits 20 hours a week, they are eligible for part-time benefits, which is they do have some PTO. They are eligible for the voluntary benefits like dental, vision, life insurance. They completely pay for that,
Right. Okay.
but it is a little different.
Yeah, I don't know if we talked about that in personnel or not. Yeah.
We didn't, but I think a part-time person sure should qualify for PTO. I mean, they're working.
Thoughts? Is there any motion?
I'll motion the additional person or the additional hours.
Have a motion by Nick. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Kim. Further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, the same. Passes. Any more? You done? Okay. I will say that, and Joan, you can, that we have had some requests for full-time people, and we haven't entertained to bring that to council. So, and you've heard some of that in the budget presentations and so forth. Okay. Chad?
Yeah, just very little for us to report on this month, but we did have bid openings on Monday for community crossing grant work that's going to be happening. And as a reminder, today's the jail, the biweekly jail meeting this afternoon at, I think 3 or 1, 2, right between at 2 o'clock. I'm not able to make it today, but I'm sure you're probably going.
Well,
Maybe Joan's going.
If
But
I go, I will have to leave. I can go for like half an hour.
yeah, it was scheduled to be yesterday, but yesterday obviously was a holiday, so they said, let's just move the date, and if you can make it, great, and if not, that's okay too. I think there's very little that they'll discuss today anyway. But I
probably won't make it.
I did see that they started to erect steel, which is exciting, and I can't wait to get out there and see that. And that's all.
Hopefully the rain didn't slow them down much.
Right.
They were
yeah.
lucky prior to that.
Yeah.
So.
We did cancel our regular meeting on Monday for lack of agenda, so I really don't have anything else to report.
Okay. Anything from the public? Yes, Amy?
During our budget hearings, for the record, Amy Biggs, Whitley County Emergency Management. During our budget hearings, I indicated to you we're anticipating receipt of a check for reimbursement costs associated with a spill. I have confirmed with the auditor's office and with the treasurer's office, we have received that check. For your awareness, the amount is $22,503.39. Those costs would be split for reimbursement from County Highway, County Drainage Department, contracted services that the Drainage Department utilized during this incident, the City of Columbia City Water Department, because we used their equipment during that, as well as County EMA. We have pending bills from these organizations for which we need to reimburse them. So I'm coming before council today to ask for the full amount, $22,503.39,
to be placed back into Whitley County EMA budget 0146 so that we can pay those pending bills.
That money has been put into county general?
We haven't received anything yet.
Okay, but you have it?
We have it, yes. Yeah.
And normal procedure would be for it to go directly into county general. I'll make the motion that we redistribute it so you can get those bills paid to the people that are owed.
I'll second.
Have a motion by Thor, a second by Joan, that we allow the auditor to receipt that in and then transfer it into the AMA budget so that they can pay the bills on that spill.
Okay.
So,
Thank you very much.
wait, get a
Your
vote.
motion, right?
Any other discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those the same.
Okay.
Opposed? Okay.
In addition, I was informed today from the treasurer's office that we received a second check for reimbursement claim in the amount of $2,360. This was a damage to one of our emergency response trailers by a third party. That occurred back in December, actually. So we've been back and forth with their insurance company to get reimbursement, and we have received that amount today as well, came in. So it would also, as outlined in the process flow, to be receipted in, but the treasurer has received $2,360. We are requesting that also to come back to Whitley County EMA budget 0146 so that we can make the necessary repairs to the trailer. The trailer has been sitting unrepaired until we could resolve this matter.
You've received the check?
Apparently, yes. I haven't talked to the treasurer yet today, but I wasn't aware it had popped in yet. But I had a chance to talk to her.
I'll make the motion upon verification of receiving the check that you would transfer those monies into her account 0146 after it's receipted so she can get her trailer fixed.
Second.
Motion by Thor, a second by Kim, that we approve the in and out of the money on the repair of the trailer for AMA. Further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, the same.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Minutes of our last meeting.
I'll motion to accept the minutes.
I have a motion by Nick to approve minutes of our June 6th meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, the same. Councilman Western. Councilman Hodges.
I have nothing, thank you.
Mr. Brewer.
I'm good.
Mr. Wheeler.
I have nothing.
And I have nothing. Meeting's adjourned.
Where do you get something like that? They actually gave it to me.
No, I mean,